what I wanted to talk about is wokeism in the workplace, and in particular how certain groups, in particular NASBOs like Maupin and Hinkle and faux leftists like or faux populists like the MPP, adopt conservative talking points in talking about wokeism, and in particular its relationship to the workplace. And I think that it's important that we have some things to kind of counter that, and how wokeism isn't something that's in the workplace, isn't something that's imposed by the bosses like conservatives and the NASBOs like to claim, but rather is something that's worker driven. The workers themselves push sort of a woke ideology in the workplace. And I even have...
I mean, by woke ideology, what are you talking about? Just having respect.
Well, I'm thinking like trans rights and things like that, which right. is, I think, how like Maupin and Hinkle, and they adopt all these anti-trans, like, we can't support trans people because workers oppose trans rights and all that nonsense. And I say that that in reality, when workplaces become more essentially liberalized, it's not something the bosses are imposing on the workplace, but rather something the workers are forcing the bosses to adopt.
Yes.
And kind of before I get to my main point on here, I just want to do a quick call out to the whole Gamergate thing, and I'll tie that into this in a little bit, but there was, especially when that first kind of got going, there's this clip of Anita Sarkeesian where she'd say, like, racism and sexism is everywhere and you have to point it all out. And they would have just that one clip and say, look at how, we're being attacked, by the feminists and yada, yada, and all that. And there was a few years after that, I actually got the chance to hear a larger portion of that clip where it's a whole paragraph, not just that one sentence, but the whole paragraph where she was where that sentence comes from, I think from a TED Talk. And, in a way that really changed a lot about how I thought about her, but also about that statement in itself. And so that's actually really reasonable when you hear right. the whole paragraph, not out of context. And the way I want to kind of tie that in is an example with wokeism being introduced into the workplaces with Rockstar Games, which makes the what's the game, the Grand Theft Auto series of games. And they have just recently, like, the workers there, I don't think they necessarily unionized specifically, but they kind of pushed back against management and enforced a lot of changes in the way the company, operated and treated employees there. And some of the things that they changed is, one thing is now the lead character in their next version is going to be, for the first time, is going to be a woman. And one of the other things too is because they're going to, before that, they're going to re-release the last version of the game. And they had the company scrub or remove all the transphobic jokes that had been in there. And this is an example then where we say this is the workers are pushing, a quote unquote woke agenda onto the workforce. Right. It's coming from the workers, not being imposed by the bosses downward. And I think that's something where that we can talk about, with people.
We saw that.
How can you support?
We saw that at Spotify too, right?
That was also the Chappelle thing in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
That was the workers at that venue. And so, like, when Greenwald comes out and says this is a free speech issue, what they really mean is the capitalist impresarios that lined those shows up, they should get to force their workers to put on those shows. To put on those shows so that they can make money off of it. I mean, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and it's the workers who pushed back against that and got those things canceled out. That's the thing where, like I said, that the NASBOs, I guess they're calling themselves, for a while they were calling themselves patriotic socialists, and now they're calling themselves MAGA communists, trying to appeal to these, the right wing, what they see as a right wing workforce. And it's like, of course it doesn't work, because of course as soon as you say the word communist, then their minds are closed. But and that's what they don't get, is that I think if we abandon supporting marginalized groups like trans people, then somehow we can connect with these sort of conservative quote unquote white workers, white working class, and it really doesn't work.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it works to gain attention.
I was going to say that, like, I think you are crediting them with, frankly, too much sincerity as to what their stated project is. I think their actual project is more. I mean, I think that guy Hinkle, someone sent me that for him it was always about clout. I mean, this is a guy who.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if you have that type of relationship with your father, where your father is like openly mocking you on Twitter and undercutting you, there's something else going on there, and you don't care about what your ideology is. You just want to get the attention. Yeah. And when you take an invitation to go to a LaRoucheite, basically, I don't know, group meeting, and hi, my name is blankety blank, and everybody says hello. We're all here, and we're all LaRoucheites. Mm-hmm. I think it really is. They do documentaries about this, like the guy who, what was it, Dr. Death? What was that one that Errol Morris did about the guy who had worked he had worked for states in doing like basically capital punishment, or studied like gas, and some neo-Nazi sort of Holocaust deniers sort of adopted this guy and made him famous within their circles, and he just was along for the ride on some level. And I think there's a quality to that. But I mean, your point stands. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Can I just say one last thing before we go?
Yeah.
Or before I go, I should say. I just wanted to say that I have an aphasia. It's something I've had pretty much my whole life. And when I heard or saw that interview that the reporter did with Fetterman, I was so disgusted with how that was portrayed. As a person myself, like for me, it predominantly affects my ability to say proper nouns like names. So there'll be times I can't say somebody's name. I know the person, I know the name, I just physically can't say it. And to have her talk about oh look, he's having problems mixing these words up and somehow like making that look like he's his mental capacity was affected, when clearly if you actually listen to what he said, it wasn't. I was so disgusted by that.
This is a problem that the media in this country has always had. It is like the whole point of having reporters do stuff in general is for them to study what they're doing and be able to represent, even in their most basic editorial choices, never mind even as how they represent it, but literally as to like what things do we point out and not. Because every time you see somebody on a show like this, or on a cable show, or in a newspaper, or wherever it is, there are always editorial decisions that are being made at any given time that are ostensibly based upon what is the most important things about this story that people should know. That's like every single thing we do here, other than my sort of meandering tangents, because this is also sort of like background noise for people at times. But you're always making an editorial decision. And the failure of these NBC reporters to know what they were talking about and to make that as if this was the most important story. Look, we see this time and time again. I also contend there is a bias that a lot of these media people have, because maybe they are liberals. And my experience, and in 20 years of doing this, more or less, has been that those are the people who overcompensate